Thank you all for being here. Thanks for inviting me to speak. I'm excited that the topic is sustainability this year, and we have some exciting stuff going on at the university, so this is a great time to kind of introduce everyone to what's happening. So Jessica went through kind of my bio, so that's my bio. I did work for BP Chemicals for 8 years as a chemical engineer, so I wasn't really involved in the gasoline production, but I did get to do a project for BP Solar, which really inspired me to think, you know, I kind of would love to work in the nonprofit realm at some point. We put on solar arrays on area high schools and middle schools, and with corresponding energy curriculum, which is where I learned a lot about what are kind of the economic problems that go with some of the renewable technologies that we have. But I've been at Notre Dame for about 4 years, and in this role for just under a year. And a lot has been going on with the office, and I'm excited to tell you about it. So I thought I'd break it down into 3 topics. Why do we focus on sustainability here at Notre Dame? Why is there a dedicated office? There's so much that goes on at the university. Why is sustainability even a focus? What are we doing, and then how well are we doing? So why sustainability at Notre Dame? Well, it's important to Notre Dame. It's important to the church. The Catholic Church, the Vatican City in Rome is the first state in the world to go carbon neutral. Now they did that partially by buying offsets. They bought some forests, so it wasn't all totally by renewables, but they did take that as a goal and proceeded with it. So I think it's a great accomplishment. Pope Benedict is often referred to as the Green Pope, and you hear him talk a lot about the responsibility for all of us on for the environment and to do our part to stop environmental degradation. Because what we do here in the West impacts people all over the world, and so climate change impacts the poorest of the poor in the worst ways. There's a Catholic Coalition for Climate Change, which I encourage you all to check out if you have any interest. And if you're on their mailing list, they'll send you updates about what's going on in the church. But really trying to get all Catholics to think about our carbon footprint and what climate change is doing to the world. So it's one of the reasons why it's important to Notre Dame. Also, sustainability is a big part of our reputation as a university, and growing so, especially since the mid-2000s when it became a graded attribute of a university. The Sustainable Endowments Institute, and I'll talk more about this later, started rating universities. You may have heard about this green report card. And we started out in 2007 with a D-. Now, we probably weren't actually a D-, but we didn't fill out the survey. So when you don't fill out the survey, they might not find all the information about what the university had been doing at that time, so they awarded us a D-. Well, quickly after that, in 2008, is when the Office of Sustainability was begun. And then we were able to kind of tell our story, what we were doing at that time, and we were awarded a C. But as you can see, our grade has continued to increase because it's been a focus at the university, and we realize that it's important to students, it's important to faculty, it's important to staff to be at a place that is taking responsibility in an ethical way. So we've seen some improvement, and I'll talk about why. Why else is it important? There's a financial impact to sustainability. I've been to lots of conferences, and I've learned a lot about this topic over the course of this last year. And there's a lot of talk that the environmental movement did itself kind of a disservice back when it first really began in the 70s and 80s, that it was focusing on just the environmental benefits. But actually, most of sustainability, there's a huge economic benefit with it. And if you focus on that and realize, yes, there's an economic benefit, and oh yeah, there's an environmental benefit as well, you tend to be able to get projects passed and people to understand what you're doing. So we're in the middle of a $10 million project to reduce our energy consumption on campus. So we've invested so far about $5 million, and we're seeing a very quick return. So this was the point in case here at Notre Dame. We went to the upper administration. This was before my time. So the utilities director a couple years ago went to the upper administration and said, hey, I'd like to spend a couple $1 million, change out some of the lightings, maybe the HVAC systems in our oldest buildings. We know we have a lot of old buildings that aren't that efficient. will you give us some money? And we had a tough time getting the money because no one was sure of what that payback would really be. Would it be 2 years? Would it be 5 years? Would it be 6 years? And I think they projected it to be 4 or 5 years, and it came in at a little over 1.5 year payback on these initial lighting retrofits. So then it was much easier going back and saying, okay, can we have another 6 million? And then we'll do some more buildings. So we're in the middle. About 70 of the buildings on campus will have new lighting and new HVAC systems. And you may have experienced some of those with lighting sensors in the rooms and temperature set points that you can't control your own heat and air conditioning anymore. But we're seeing a great savings on that, and that has a positive impact in the university. As well, we know that the residence halls rack up about $800,000 a year in energy bills, in electricity bills alone. And every year we do a dorm energy competition for 1 month, and we put all the dorms against each other and see who can reduce the largest percentage-wise reduction in electricity. And this past year, Knott Hall won with a 26% reduction in that 1 month, which is pretty impressive. So if that could be extrapolated over all of the dorms over all of the years, we know that there could be a 26% opportunity there. So even if it's less than that, we know that there's some waste that we can hopefully get rid of over the years. So what are we doing on campus? I'm sure this is what you're primarily interested here in. So this is our mission and vision. Our mission is to really integrate principles across campus. So in everything that we do in terms of operations, and then engage the campus community in the academy and the administration to have this discussion and to encourage people to discuss the issues and to basically behave or change your personal behaviors. And the vision is that we will be a leader, especially as a Catholic institution, that this is important to the church. It's an important part of Catholic social teaching. How can we be a leader in this going forward? Our 3 primary goals are reduce our carbon footprint. That's number 1, first and foremost. Number 2 is to reduce waste on campus. So reducing anything we send to landfill, reducing our water waste and toxicity. And then expand the education and outreach opportunities on campus so everyone who's here will at least have the opportunity to engage in the discussion about sustainability and maybe change their behaviors while on campus and off whenever everyone leaves campus. And these are our primary focus areas down below. So energy, the construction of buildings, transportation, waste, what we're purchasing, food and water. And a new focus that we're focusing on that really will go toward energy is IT. That's a part on campus that we haven't really focused on in the past that we're going to hopefully work with them. So some of our campus initiatives and programs. Green building. So this is going really well. A few years ago, the architect's office decided every building we build on campus is going to be at least LEED silver. So we have 4 LEED gold and 1 LEED silver so far. So Geddes Hall was our first LEED gold, Ryan Hall LEED gold, Stinson Remick gold, Purcell Pavilion gold, and Innovation Park silver. And all of the ones that are currently being constructed or just were recently constructed, we expect all of them to at least be LEED silver, which is great. And it shows that we're being conscious of all the things that go into LEED. I don't know how familiar everyone is with LEED, but it's how the building is constructed, how the waste is dealt with, what are the types of materials that went into building the building, what are the water policies, are there low flow toilets and faucets, and then there's a part that's energy. LEED has received some criticism because you could build a LEED building and only have a slight reduction in the amount of energy from code. So they're working on that, trying to make that the energy reduction more of a yeah. Fall short of gold. Well, the goal is silver, so we still accomplish that. I don't know all the points and where they went for points and where they didn't go to points, but it comes down to the budget of the building and what are they willing to spend in order to get those extra points for LEED gold. But I'll have to look at the list and see where we might not have gotten the points there that we did for the other buildings. Energy efficiency is a big focus area, probably at least for the foreseeable next few years. This is going to be our primary focus as an office and as a university. We're in the middle of these energy conservation measures, and in a year or two, those will be finished. And then the next step will be, well, what do we do next? There's so much opportunity out there for reducing our energy consumption, so what's the next step? And really to get people to change their behaviors, to turn off lights, to put their computers to sleep, to unplug your gaming systems and your televisions when not in use, and really get people to start thinking about how the energy that they use on campus every day. We're at an advantage and disadvantage because we're such a centralized campus that each individual unit doesn't get charged an electricity bill. It all gets paid centrally. But the downside of that is then every individual unit doesn't see what they're spending or what they're using. And so because we don't have that, it's hard to get people to change their behaviors because they're not paying the bill themselves. Waste reduction. So we have a lot of projects around waste reduction. One we started last fall that you may have heard about through Office Depot. So all office supplies are now being delivered, or they should be delivered using these green plastic reusable totes. So you may order, in the past you may have ordered a box of pens and it would come in a cardboard box with lots of fluff in there, all wasted. So now it comes in the green tote to the building, and then it gets delivered in a small brown paper bag. So we've reduced significant amounts of cardboard on campus. Recycling is a big focus area, as many of you, I'm sure you've all participated in. We went to single stream recycling in 2007, I believe, which makes it a lot easier, that you don't have to separate papers and aluminum and plastic. And we have a phenomenal relationship with Waste Management, who is our waste provider. And we're able to recycle things on campus that us who live in the community aren't able to recycle ourselves at our homes. So our rule of thumb, just to tell all your friends and to tell everyone, that basically everything can be recycled. Put anything in the recycling bin as long as it's not water, liquid, or food waste, like an apple core or a banana peel. Styrofoam can be recycled on campus. That's one of the ones that people get confused by because you can't recycle it at home. And also because we have such an international campus, really, and students are coming from all over the world and all over the country where the rules are different. And so you come to campus and you're like, well, what should I recycle, what shouldn't I? So our default is go ahead and recycle it. We have, there's a 10 to 15% leeway of things that can be put in the recycling bin that don't necessarily, if they're not able to be recycled, they'll end up in landfill anyway. But at least it's able to potentially be recycled if you put it in the recycling bin. So we're working on that communication. We have a big football game day recycling effort. I don't know if any of you have experienced that. We have students that go around to all the tailgaters and pass around blue bags and try to give some advice on what can be recycled and what can't and how to green tailgates. And we've been really, really successful. We averaged about 18 tons a game this year of recycled materials. And we actually won the EPA challenge for the Midwest. So we competed against like Michigan State and Michigan and some local schools, and we recycled the most. It was the pit game that we recycled the most, so that was great. But there's tons of opportunity there as well. For food services has a committee on sustainability, actually, and they've been doing some great work, which is exciting. There's a sustainable fish program at Notre Dame, which we were the first school to have a sustainable fish program. So I think up to almost 40% of the fish served on campus is certified sustainable. A lot of local purchasing. I think between 35 and 40% of the fruits and veg served in the dining halls and in the area cafes is from local. And that definition is pretty broad. I think it goes into Ohio and Michigan as local, but it's still an effort to try to as local as possible. I don't know if any of you have been to the new green fields, but it's a new renovated concept on healthy options and sustainable. So the chairs that they used, each chair is made of 100 recycled Coke bottles, plastic bottles. And so they tried to use a lot of recycled components for their chairs and tables and organic foods, local foods as much as possible, seasonal. We also have a community garden for the first time on campus. Last year was the first summer for it. There were 45 plots given out. We had over 500 people show interest in having a plot for the garden, which is exciting. So this year we're hoping to add some composting to it and and maybe a little more assistance, because I think some of the gardeners had some trouble with their plats and it didn't go as well. But for the most part, it went really, really well this past summer up in Whitefield. As far as transportation, we have a long way to go on transportation. We've done some things. Part of the university fleet is now comprised of Toyota Priuses and hybrid vehicles. We started with the Zipcar program this past fall, which is a car sharing program that you can sign up for. And we have 4 cars on campus that any student, staff, or faculty member can rent for an hour up to 4 days. And once you're a registered part of the Zipcar community, basically, you can rent a car anywhere. So you could be in Paris or London and rent a Zipcar, and then come here and rent one to go to the grocery store. So hopefully it'll encourage students to not necessarily bring their cars to campus, but know that they have an option. We also have an exciting program around electric vehicles that hopefully will start to kick off here. We have a very strong partnership with Eaton Corporation, and they just donated 10 electric vehicle charging stations to the university. It's kind of like one of those chicken and the egg arguments. Do you get the electric car first before you have the infrastructure, or do you have the infrastructure before you have the cars? So now we're going to have some infrastructure, but we don't have any cars yet. So the next step is we're evaluating all the cars on campus that are used, all the types of vehicles, the delivery vans, the delivery box trucks, the landscaping vehicles, the golf carts, and seeing what can we transfer over to electric vehicles and slowly start phasing in electric over the course of time. There's also a lot of academic initiatives going on in terms of sustainability, more and more so, which is great to see. I talked to a recent grad, I think she had graduated a year or two ago, a couple months ago, and she said that she did not even hear the word sustainability on campus until she was a junior. So that definitely does not happen now. So first-year students, as soon as they come to Notre Dame, they hear the word sustainability pretty quickly. There's some minors. There's an energy studies minor that's housed in the College of Engineering that recently was passed, and also a sustainability minor that'll be housed in the College of Science. But students from any discipline can go through these minors. There's required curriculum now in the contemporary topics class that first-year students take that talks, I think, about a wide range of contemporary topics, and one of those is sustainability. And maybe if there's time at the end, we can play you the video that we made, but if not, go to YouTube and put in Go Irish, Go Green. There's about a 9-minute video that now all first-year students see in their first semester here at Notre Dame. It's got Father John, Father Hesburgh, a couple of the football coaches, some of the football team, Muffet McGraw, just a lot of campus celebrities, and Mike Collins, I think, is a dining hall checker, just encouraging all the different aspects on campus for sustainability, trying to build the culture at Notre Dame of that this is important and that it's everyone's responsibility. There's lots of coursework. I'm sure some of the students that are here, this might be part of classes that you're taking now, but embedded within courses, there's sustainability components now that maybe there weren't as many before. There's whole courses dedicated to sustainability, and that's growing more and more in all disciplines. This past fall, we ran a Sustainability and Catholic Social Teaching colloquium. It was a 1-credit course through the Center of Social Concerns. Just kind of like talking about that cross-section of how it is part of Catholic social teaching and how it's a part of our responsibility as Christians to take care of our environment. We started a very successful sustainable laboratory program called Green Discovery, where last summer we began asking if we could go into laboratories and just do an audit. And it really boiled down to an energy audit. We brought in metered individual pieces of equipment, and then came back and just made suggestions of easy things that could be done. And then we offered through our Green Loan Fund, we have a $2 million Green Loan Fund where if there's a project that a unit has that has a payback and that does have an environmental benefit, we can run that through the Green Loan Fund. So purchasing Energy Star refrigerators or ovens. So this is a great story. In chemistry, we went into one of the labs, and they had about 4 or 5 ovens that are used to dry glassware. So each oven was set to max capacity. It would take maybe an hour to dry the glassware, but they were on 24 hours a day. And they were each maybe 10% full. So you had these like 4 or 5 ovens. And they were older models, so they were very inefficient, and so they had a lot of radiant heat coming off of it. It's in the middle of the summer, so they had to bring in extra air conditioning to cool the room because the ovens were making it so hot. So this is a very strong example of where we're not being efficient, and because we don't have to pay our own energy bills, it's kind of like, well, we need to get our glasses dry, so this is what we're going to do. So we go in and kind of help show, all right, these ovens, this is the equivalent of a home. In South Bend, and let's do something about that. We'll buy you an efficient oven and then just use one and maybe turn it off at night when you're not using it. So, so I think that program is going to be very successful. And then we're working with all the colleges, and we hope to this year to really launch that. We started with the College of Science to come up with a sustainability plan, so looking at things just like this, what's happening in the laboratories, what is the coursework that could be offered in the staff offices, faculty offices.
Thought about metering every building?
Yes. So.
Possible. I mean, I work for Johnson & Johnson in the 60s, and we metered every department because of the arguments about who was using the most energy.
Yes.
I might be wrong, that the College of Business gets slammed with a lot of energy because of our square footage. But my guess is that the Science and Engineering College is a lot less than we
have electricity meters on all of the buildings. The problem is that they're not real time. So the utilities engineers go out once a month and they meter the buildings, and then so we do track the energy usage. We don't have every building broken down for how much steam and chilled water. So because of that, you don't have the full energy profile of each of the buildings. So we're working to change that. It's very expensive to put the meters in. And that's part of what the Office of Sustainability is doing, is working with utilities and other groups on campus to convince them of the value of that, of what we could get back by having the meters and then making people aware of what's being used. We do know that the 7 highest energy consumers on campus are the 5 major laboratory buildings, so Galvin, Steppen, Jordan, Stinson-Remick, I'm missing one, Newland. And then the library and the Joyce are the 7 biggest users on campus. And then I think DPAC is right next. The Performing Arts Center is right then number 8. So we have a project now to look at. Well, let's comprehensively meter those, because we know we can probably get a payback on those. But so that's definitely something that we're looking for as kind of the next step after these energy conservation measures. Education and outreach. So this is a lot of the fun stuff that we get to do. We get to design programs to try to get people interested and enthusiastic about sustainability. This year we had our first annual Feast of St. Francis. So St. Francis of Assisi is the patron saint of the environment and of animals. And his day is October 4th every year, his feast day. So we had a mass in celebration. And then food services really got into this. In the dining halls, we had a table set up with desserts. So there were different animal desserts and fun things. Then it was just provided an opportunity to have the discussion. So we'll continue that and expand that. Energy Week happens every year in the fall, sponsored by the Notre Dame Energy Center. Hopefully in the future, there'll be more and more of an opportunity to partner with all partners on campus that have discussions around energy. And make that even maybe even a longer than a week period, because that's kind of a hot topic and very, very important in sustainability. Probably like the biggest part of sustainability is energy. We do a CFL exchange in the dorms every year during the first year orientation. So as the freshmen come on campus, we set up booths. We take away their incandescent bulbs and give them CFLs. And then we do the same at the Dorm Energy Challenge. So in the past, the Dorm Energy Challenge has taken place every October or November, just for 1 month. And we go around to kind of launch that door to door to the dorm rooms, take the incandescent bulbs, give them the CFLs. What we're hoping to do in the fall, we're in the middle of putting individual meters on each of the dorms. So it'll be real-time electricity meters. But then we can have a front-end dashboard, so the students can go at any time to a website, to a smartphone, and see what is my energy consumption of my dorm right now compared to my brother or sister dorm? And then we can start having really cool competitions throughout the whole year. There are some schools, though, there's a LEED Platinum building at Wake Forest that has every individual dorm room metered. So then you can see, how you're performing compared to your neighbor. And then how much it is when you have your gaming system plugged in versus the dorm, the room down the way that doesn't have a gaming system. There's, the differences in energy. So we're not going to get there probably for years and years and years, but that would be fun. So this year, I mentioned that Not had a 26% reduction. Overall, the average was about 13% for all of the dorms. And what we've found is that, some dorms, when they realize they're doing well, they get really into it. And they start doing things like no one uses the elevator. They unplug their vending machines. We've heard that they start to go to the classroom buildings and charge their phones in the classroom buildings, or they go to a friend's dorm and do their laundry and that kind of thing. So it gets pretty competitive. But then some of the dorms just don't do anything at all. So we're looking at why that is, why the cultures of some dorms just lend themselves to getting into these competitions and some don't. I'm actually working with Auntie Glavis's class on sustainability this spring, and the students are looking into what drives behavior change. So why is one individual more interested than another, or why is one dorm more interested than another? We have a Green Summit every year. This is our 4th one. This coming up next Friday on the 25th at 3 p.m. It's about purchasing power. So when we purchase things, what is the environmental impact that went into producing that cell phone or that T-shirt or that shampoo, and then what happens down the line too after its use. So it'll be a pretty, Jenny Mish from the business school is going to talk about labeling and eco-labeling and the impacts of the positive and negative impacts of that. So I encourage all of you to attend that. Then this April, we're starting a No Impact Week for the first time. So there was a movie, I don't know if you've heard of it, called No Impact Man. It was about a gentleman who lived in Manhattan, and he and his family decided that they were going to try to have, for a year, have no impact. I have not seen the movie personally, but I've heard it's pretty interesting how he went about, reducing his impact living in New York. And so a program has developed for universities where they come in and kind of walk the students through each day different things that you can do to minimize your impact on campus. So that'll be coming in April.
What do you mean by no impact?
So reduce your waste. Yeah. No, but still be functioning. So reduce your energy usage, the food that you eat, the waste that you bring, where you're purchasing things and where those things came from. So how much carbon footprint might have had to buy this product that was manufactured across the ocean, or versus this one that was manufactured in New York. Those types of things. I don't know how we got to no impact, but we should all watch the movie. Did you? Yeah. What's that?
In the car, they take public transportation, they walk, they take flights.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie to watch. You can't live like that.
Yeah. To sustain that over time.
Yeah.
And in Manhattan, it's a little bit easier than in South Bend to not drive, right? So how are we doing on campus with all of these growing initiatives and all of these things that we're working on? How are we doing? So we'll start by our first goal, which is reducing our carbon footprint. The energy intensity is the amount of energy consumed per gross square foot. So you can see over time, over the last 20 years, how as campus has grown, we've seen a pretty steady increase in energy consumption, except for the last few years when we started the energy conservation measures, where we're changing out light fixtures and HVAC systems, where we're controlling the amount of time that the building is operational. So buildings that are not used at night, why do we have to heat and cool them? Why should the lights be on? Let's automate those so they will turn down at night. And we've seen great success, and you can see that with our carbon footprint then. So the carbon footprint is the red line, and the blue line is the growth of square footage on campus, which is pretty impressive that we've seen that decline. So we're pretty excited about where we're headed and what's happening now. But it starts to get harder. So we've done a lot of the low-hanging fruit now. So it's going to start to get harder to continue to see that line decrease, especially as we continue to build buildings, especially buildings like Stinson-Remick that is so energy intensive. The new ice rink, very energy intensive. So we're constantly monitoring this and figuring out how we can continue the good trend. About 85% of our carbon footprint is due to energy consumption on campus. So we produce our energy. We have a combined heat and power plant on campus, which right now we're actually burning mostly natural gas, but typically, historically, it's about 85% coal, 15% natural gas. Over the past few years, which is why we've seen this decline, it's been about 60% coal, 40% natural gas. So we hope to also continue that trend with our utilities long-range plan. So we've developed about a 50-year plan for utilities to look at, well, what are our other options? Campus is going to continue to grow. We're not going to bring another coal-fired boiler on campus. That's just not going to happen in this day and age. So how can we meet the energy demand of a growing campus while continuing to reduce our carbon footprint? So we're looking at things like regeneration units to capture waste heat, geothermal for new buildings. We continue to investigate renewables. Co-firing biomass into the boilers might be an option in the future. Wind and solar have very long paybacks here. So until that technology changes, or until there might be a price on coal in the future, then or on carbon in the future, it doesn't make sense for the next at least 5 to 10 years for us. But looking at some of these other types of renewables, definitely part of the future. So we'll be launching probably in the summer, early fall, a carbon footprint target for the university. So we're passing it through the administration, all the officers and deans, and then the board of trustees, and then we'll be able to launch that. But we need that. We're on this downward trend, but we need, okay, in X many years, how low do we want to be compared to a certain level? So that's kind of my next step, is to figure out what is that goal. But 15% of the carbon footprint is due to our fleet, university travel, landfilled waste, commuting, and not direct energy production on campus, or production or consumption. But overall, it's a pretty positive story. Yeah?
Why should it move from coal to natural gas? Cost or new facilities?
Of natural gas, it has been advantageous lately. It's still not as cheap as coal, but it's been much lower in the last few years. But it has a much less carbon intensity than coal. So when we can take advantage of that through economic, when the prices are lower, then we will. Now, forecasts going into the future show that natural gas prices will go up. Coal prices might come up a little bit, but will stay pretty low. So then making that justification will be harder. And it will come down to what is the university's goal around carbon and how much are we willing to invest. Any other questions on this?
Are all the coal boilers co-fired? I mean, they all can use either dual source?
Yes.
All of them?
All of them can. I believe some that can't, but I believe all of them can now. Mm-hmm. And we're testing, and hopefully we'll be testing in the next year or so, co-firing biomass as well, woody biomass, and just seeing if that could be a potential for the future. It's not ideal, but it would help us reduce our footprint. But even if we went to, many universities are coming out with, we're going to reduce by 40% by 2020. From our 2005 levels, or we're going to become carbon neutral by 2050. Cornell recently came out with that, I think Clemson. And part of they'll reach that goal partly by buying offsets. But they're all moving away from coal. Penn State, in the heart of coal country, just announced that they're moving away from coal. So there'll be continued pressure on universities that rely heavily on coal to reduce that. And we're blessed with where we are and the fact that we have a very efficient power plant on campus, so we have very low energy prices at Notre Dame. So where we pay 4, 5, 6 cents per kilowatt hour, Harvard pays 16 cents. So we're blessed and we're cursed, because then it's more difficult to justify projects when we have the low price. Yeah.
Locally produced their plans to install their new coal boilers.
They received a lot of heat for that when they announced that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So yeah, I heard about that. So universities are moving away from it, and that'll be our direction as well. We just have to figure out how we're gonna, what is our path? How aggressive are we going to be initially, and what is our path to get to our goal? Eliminating waste. We have a lot to do around this, actually. So water we haven't focused on in the past. We get our water on campus from wells under the ground, so it's essentially free. We pay a little bit for the electric usage to pump it out of the ground, and then we pay on the wastewater end. So we have very cheap water. So that's why when I was a student, we used to complain about the irrigation systems that would, irrigate the sidewalks and be going during the rain and all of that. So there's definitely hasn't been the focus on water. It's growing though, because water is such an important commodity for the entire world. Students are coming from all over the country in places where there's not as much water, and they look and see our wasteful practices and are upset. So we're installing, to that irrigation point, we're installing a smart irrigation system that actually looks at the saturation level of how much rain has happened, the saturation level of the soil, to see if it actually needs to go. And we're looking at more options to have rain or drought-resistant grasses and more rain gardens and more natural areas of campus. We'll never get rid of the big quads, but there's some like small triangles around campus that it just doesn't make sense to have grass where you have to mow and water and all of that. So are there other landscaping options we can do? But part of that decline could be the fact that we are retrofitting a lot of buildings with low flow toilets, aeration systems on the faucets, so there's less water flow, and hopefully more of an awareness. Recycling rate, this is pretty poor actually. The rule of thumb is that there's 2 recycling bins for every 1 trash bin. That would be ideal. So 2/3 of all of our trash we should think about should be recycled rather than thrown away into the landfill. And we're far away from that. The blue is the single stream, and the green is like cardboards and pallets and metals and batteries and stuff that's used through some of the units, and delivery mechanisms for supplies that come in cardboard boxes. That all goes into the green. So we're getting better, but we have a long way to go. Yes?
Why did 10, the single stream, reduce? It seemed like we had more attention and we had to reduce. Or was there some reason that the other
was larger? It could have been because there was a lot of construction happening during that time, so a lot of the construction waste could have gone in the green category, which makes it seems lower. But we're not seeing the steps in the recycling that we'd hope to. So I'd love offline anyone's feedback on how they think that people would recycle more. We're toying with the idea of everyone's desk. Currently you have a waste bin and a recycling bin. What if you just had a recycling bin? Made it a little more difficult for people to go throw their waste away, like go to a central place. And then just the communication of what can and cannot be recycled. I think there's a lot of confusion on campus about what can and cannot be recycled. So we're trying to get the word out there more. And then just kind of sending the message too. I think a lot of our bins don't send the right message, like the ones outside on campus. The pretty green ones, the green metal ones, they have a large trash area and then this tiny little area for recycling. And it sends the wrong message. It should be reversed. It should be, most of the stuff can be recycled. Just a little bit is trash. So we're working on that, but would love any feedback on if anyone has any ideas of how to get people to change. Yeah.
Part of water, what's the university doing as far as use of chemicals, disinfectants, and soaps and detergents and all that stuff?
So staff has done a great job of moving to more sustainable cleaning products. They're in the middle of a process improvement project now that's around exactly that, of how much to purchase when and how to do it as sustainably as possible. Things like paper towels as well. Like, the paper towel use on campus is a huge part of our waste. Can we move away from paper towels, and can we do it with more recycled content paper? We just went into an agreement with Kimberly-Clark for all of the paper products on campus to be 70% recycled content, which is exciting.
There's also people ozone cleaning rather than chemicals. I'll send you.
Okay.
The hotels now, they clean all their laundry and ozone. No soaps at all.
Okay.
That'd be expensive to make the ozone.
Yeah.
Why go out the paper? Do you save more by paper or these hand dryers that run for?
The very efficient dryers have a lower carbon footprint than the paper towels. So like the Dyson Airblade or that Accelerator one, those are better. I don't know the stats on some of the other older ones. Yeah, yeah. I know. See, that's the thing with sustainability is there's lots of sides to every story. Our ratings. So I talked a little bit in the beginning about how we've gone from a D- to a B+ over the past 5 years. There's lots of rating systems. The one that that's received the most attention is the college grade from the Sustainable Endowments Institute. There's a new one coming out called STARS, Sustainability Tracking, Assessment, and Rating System. That's been developed through the Association for Sustainability Professionals in Higher Ed. And it's more geared toward higher ed. So it's, there's a whole curriculum and research section. And there's operational sections, definitely. And there's less emphasis on the endowments. So the one downfall with the Sustainable Endowments Institute rating is that you get graded on how transparent you are about your endowment holdings, which we're not transparent about. So we get a D, I think a D on that every year. So there's some pitfalls to the grading system. So the whole industry might be slowly moving over to the STARS. But the SEI, the one that grades now, it was founded in 2005. Its purpose is to advance sustainability. And really, even with its pitfalls, it has done that. So by grading universities, it raised awareness, and now most all universities have a sustainability office and have a focus around this. So they could take a little credit for that, the fact that they raised the awareness. So these are our historical grades in the different categories. You can see that when we started out down here, lots of F's and D's. But that over here on the endowment transparency, we're not going to be transparent with where we invest, so we're always going to get a D. So the best grade that we could ever hope for is probably an A-. But we've come a really long way, especially in some of these categories. I was surprised that we got an A in climate and energy this year because we don't have a public climate plan. But the fact that we had reduced our carbon emissions by 16% from 2005 levels is quite an achievement. And so I think they recognize that. And we have some opportunities with green building. Why we got a B there, even though we have this new policy for new buildings, is that we're not necessarily going back to the existing buildings and retrofitting them to a LEED standard or into a certain standard. So we have some opportunity there to either tell our story better or put in better policies.
How much, this is self-reporting, then do they have independent audit of what all the colleges and universities are saying?
They do. They say they do, but I don't know how much they actually truly audit. So this is part of where they get some heat, because there's rumors that they have students that are awarding the grades and filling out the evaluation. They're not very transparent on what makes an A versus what makes a B. Like the STARS system, it's kind of like the LEED program where you'll know exactly what grade you're going to get before you go in, because there's points for everything that you do or don't do. But you have to submit web addresses and contact names. So I'm sure that they do check out some of the websites to make sure you're not just completely making things up. But yeah, but many schools are very upset with this system. So although we're pleased with our B+ and that we've seen improvement, I don't know that we'll get a B+ next year, because we're just not sure how they go about the grading process.
So do you want us to contact Scott Malpass with the Notre Dame and tell him that we're one of the best ethical programs in the country, and his office basically it sucks. It really hurts us.
I don't think he's going to change his opinion on that.
Let me give you some insight. Okay? In accounting, basically you're talking about transparency. There are ways of being transparent that you don't have to give away the shop. I don't think Scott really understands that. I didn't teach him accounting, but some of my colleagues did. He's a great investor. He not a very good accountant.
When we get ready to fill this out, I'm going to contact you and about the questions.
That's the beauty of tenure. I can tell them anything I
Good. So then you can help us. So
Oh,
then,
yeah.
you can help us with the questions.
Well,
maybe
and as an alumnus who donates to investment funds, I would
You'd love
say
to have the
I would like to see
transparency as well.
transparency as well.
Here we go.
Well, good. Maybe we can get that. So we've made a lot of progress. It is the story, but there's still a long way to go, especially when we compare ourselves to some of our peers and how evolved they are. When you look at our peers, the U.S. News & World Report Top 25, we're right in the middle of the grades. So you see Yale and Brown are the two in the top 25 that have received an A. Caltech, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, Penn, Dartmouth, and Cornell all have A minuses. And Cornell's the one that's going to carbon net zero by 2050. So I thought that was interesting that they have an A minus and we just have a B plus, and we're not there. So I mean, there's a lot of arguments about what's fair and what's right. But we've made the most progress. So we're in the middle of the pack in terms of absolute grade, but we've definitely made the most progress since the inception. That could be because since we didn't turn in anything in 2007 and we got the D minus, but we have come a long way. So our next steps and priorities as an Office of Sustainability, and really as a whole university as we're moving this forward, is we have to have these targets, specific targets for carbon and for waste reduction and recycling, because then you can point to, this is a university adopted goal, everyone has to do their part. Communication is the key. So like on this recycling issue or on some of the issues we have with energy efficiency is we gotta get the word out. And so by doing that, we're hopefully going to start a staff ambassadors program where in every office there's a kind of a green person who can be like the contact and the liaison. We do have that in all of the dorms. We have a green commissioner. Plans, strategies, launching a university strategy will be key. A green office certification program where by doing certain things you can have a different level of certification by how green your office is. We're going to start that hopefully in the next year. Continued focus on recycling and waste reduction. And really kind of launching a lot of these sustainability teams across campus just to foster the communication. So how can we partner with IT? Athletics has been kind of a lost entity out there, so how can we bring athletics into the fold? We're starting a landscaping committee tonight, actually. We have a meeting this afternoon to talk about what can we do around landscaping, laboratories, and transportation. And then, to your point, the real-time metering and the dorms and the lab buildings as a highest priority. But then it'd be great to have it all across campus. Yeah.
Yet the metering for the dorms and lab buildings, or is that just kind of the first phase? Is there actually money set aside for that yet, or is that just the plan?
What we're going to do with the dorms is put it through the Green Loan Fund. So do the metering of the dorms and then justify the payback based on the Dorm Energy Challenge results, because then we have at least numbers over the last few years that we can justify it. So no, we're trying to get money set aside for the big energy hog buildings. But it's tough when you can't prove a payback. So we're in the middle of researching how can we prove that by metering you do get a payback. The other day where when it was like 15 degrees outside or 10 degrees or whatever, and the windows were open on the third floor. So it was so hot in there that they had to have the windows open. So what I talked to utilities about that, about how do we message this, and so they say that don't always assume that they've purposely said it that way or that the building's so old that there's no solution. So when there is a problem like that where it seems unreasonable, contact them where they can come and actually look and see, because there could be actually something physically wrong with the building. But that, I think, is the next step in the low-hanging fruit, is how do we monitor these buildings better so that situation's not happening? Because I think that happens a lot in the older buildings across campus. and in the winter, it should be slightly cooler than slightly warmer if it was really being automated properly. So, yeah. Let's talk afterwards, and then I can get the information and pass it along to utilities. Any other questions? That's all I had for my presentation, so any other, yeah.
One of the advantages is supposedly getting more employee buy-in, so they have lower turnover. They also potentially have more ethical behavior by people who connect with the organization. Is there any attempt or ability to try to identify those, or is that something that just doesn't make sense for everybody to look at?
People.
Employees,
yeah.
buy-in, it's hard to measure behavioral changes
right.
or turnover, but something about connection with the organization people are doing.
Yeah. They, you know, that's a good point, because on the staff side, we do that ND Voice survey every couple of years where it talks exactly about that, like why are you connected, how connected do you feel to the university's mission, and those kinds of questions. And there's no sustainability questions on there. But that would actually be interesting, because I know there is a lot of research on when a corporation has a mission towards sustainability or other ethical topics, that people are more engaged and happier. So yeah, that'd be something to add. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be interesting at Notre Dame. Yeah.
I'm a member of the Mayor's Green Ribbon Commission for South Bend, and I'd like to see, you know, just for the future, maybe some more coordination and getting the story out from Notre Dame to the community, and cross-sharing, collaboration on what's worked here and what can work for the city and for private residences. So.
We're working on Burke, the new energy director. So he and I and Mike Keene over at IUSB, we're having monthly meetings now to talk about exactly that, like how can we all work together.
Now the
so.
spring is coming.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We'll have a plan for next winter.
All right, well, thanks so much to Heather. Thanks to all of you. Some great questions, I think.
Thank you.
And join us tomorrow, Sustainability and